Hi, welcome to Witchy Wednesday. It's Lara here with your weekly astrology forecast for December 4th to 10th, 2019. Thanks for being here. Today we have the moon in Pisces, and she's at her first quarter square phase, right? So that means halfway between the most recent new moon, which was in Sagittarius, and then the upcoming full moon, which will be in Gemini. And we'll talk about that in next week's video. But when the moon reaches that square configuration, right, 90-degree angle, conversation of tension, it's sort of this crisis point. Now, don't go to the like worst case scenario. That's not what I mean by crisis. It's this point where we've set our intentions, hopefully, for this new moon phase, and we've reached this point where okay, now something transpires where we may have to refocus, we may have to deal with something, we may have to rejig things, we may realize that we're on the wrong path. You know, something transpires, or it could be like all of a sudden an opportunity comes to, and we have to really hustle to harness it. It can be any number of things, right? But it tends to be this time in the phase, or in the moon cycle rather, where it's like reached some kind of a pressure point. So that's where we're at with the moon in Pisces. And the moon in Pisces doesn't love pressure. It's a bit more dreamy and likes to maybe chill out with some good holiday movies. Maybe work on some art, maybe do some spiritual work, listen to some music, have a good cry, these kinds of things. Really good time for using our intuition and, our creativity and our compassion and empathy and that sort of thing. So if you want to actually know more about working with the moon as it transits the zodiac and the moon in general and her cycles and how you can harness that and begin to understand that better and use it practically, then please make sure, if you haven't already, to take advantage of the Working with the Moon guide that I made for you. It's free. You can get it at my website. You just have to go, there's a link below. Just go over there, put your email in, and you will get these downloads sent to you by email automatically, right? So a PDF and an audio that go together. So moon's in Pisces. She will move into Aries tomorrow on Thursday, and Taurus on Sunday, and then Gemini on Tuesday, and then we'll have that full moon in Gemini while the moon's in Gemini, obviously. So talk about that next week. The other thing that's happening this week is Mercury is entering Sagittarius. That's happening on Monday, the 9th, and Mercury will be there till the 28th. So moving out of the deep waters of Scorpio, right, where we've been really doing there's a lot of mental activity, Mercury, focused on the depths, right? And those Scorpio themes of perhaps intimacy. It can have to do with secrets and power and obsession and control and money. It can have to do with really getting to the bottom of things, digging deep. And so that's where a lot of our mental activity has been focused on of late while Mercury's been in Scorpio. Thinking, speaking, communicating, our inner self-talk. It also has to do with Mercury also rules mobility and short commutes and that kind of thing too. So there may have been an element of intensity around that, around vehicles, around commuting, that kind of thing. But now with Mercury and Sag, we're all going on a mental adventure over this holiday season, right? So Mercury and Sag is more about future vision. It's about the big picture ideas, optimistic thinking, having faith that everything will be well and work out. And our communications tend to be more enthusiastic and optimistic and and that kind of thing with Mercury and Sag, right? Focusing again on the big picture rather than the details. Also, there can be a focus on what is fair and just, because Sagittarius is very concerned with that. And so there can be some communications and some thinking and writing and speaking and such going on in relation to issues of fairness. You know, the shadow side of this energy is pushing our worldview, our beliefs, our philosophies on others, like trying to force other people to believe what we believe, or, you know, that this is the way it is, kind of thing. There can also be a tendency toward bluntness and, you know, lacking tact. Sometimes Sag can just blurt things out and not really consider how it might land with the other person, right? So that's something to be mindful of. But in general, you know, Sagittarius is Santa. That's the energy of Santa Claus. You know, that jolly kind of figure who comes bearing gifts. And so that's ultimately what our focus is on mentally. However, we want to be mindful of not going over the top, right? Not overindulging, not too much of anything, because Sag can have that tendency as well. So the house that Sagittarius occupies in your chart will give you a clue as to what life area this energy is really focused on over this next while until the 28th. And if you don't know, then if you watch the new moon in Sagittarius video from a couple of weeks ago, it tells you in there what house Sagittarius sits for you. But what I really want to focus on for most of this video is Chiron, which may sound like it's coming a bit out of left field, but it's really not, because Chiron is stationing direct on the 12th, I believe it is, 11th or 12th, depending where you live. And Chiron is making a long haul transit through Aries right now, right? Which started, well, really late, dipped its toe in 2018, but it really has been in there since February 2019. So pretty much all of this year, and will remain there until 2027. So this is a long haul transit of Chiron through Aries. And I've spoken about this before here and there. I have a whole video separate on this on my channel, Chiron and Aries, and then a video just on Chiron. But I want to revisit this because we're early in the going still. So it's good to bring this back into our awareness. And because Chiron's stationing direct, when a planet stations, the energy is amplified. So it calls to our attention. And so it's a good time to focus on this right now. And also because over these next couple of weeks, Chiron is Jupiter's going to be in square with Chiron. Jupiter just moved into Capricorn, right? We talked about that in last week's video. That's another longish transit. So Jupiter will be in Capricorn for this whole year. So what I spoke about last week applies to the entire year. If you haven't heard that yet, you can, when you have some time, go have a listen. But because Jupiter's just moved into Capricorn, yes, it's at the early degrees. Chiron is at the early degrees of Aries, 1 degree of Aries specifically. And so Jupiter is at 0 degrees, and within the next couple of weeks will hit, you know, the 1 degree mark. And so it will be in a square conversation. And ultimately, this is an opportunity for us to make some leaps and bounds with this energy, right? To reap some benefits. But we're going to have to do something about it. That's a square. You generally have to take action in some way to reap the rewards, but the rewards are long lasting and profound. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about this today. I want to show you the chart before I really dive into that. So here's the chart for December 4th, right? So we have here, well, we've got the moon, as I mentioned, in Pisces, right conjuncting Neptune. That will move on quickly because the moon changes signs quickly. We've got Uranus and Taurus. You know, that's a long haul transit as well. North Node, still there, will be for about a year more. In Cancer, Mercury in Scorpio, but as I mentioned, going to move into Sagittarius to join the sun here. And of course, the party in Capricorn, which may not be, a word for Capricorn energy, but all of this going on in Capricorn, Jupiter has now joined the party, right? As I mentioned, right there, 0 degrees. And so, I want to take a second. We've talked a lot about Capricorn because of, the big deal that's going on there. With the upcoming conjunction and all the energy that's focused on Capricorn right now, and now Jupiter in there too. But it's important, if you've been hearing me drone on about this, or other astrologers drone on about this, and you haven't really been paying it much mind, or you've been looking at it like it's happening out there and not in my own life, or you're not really sure, what to do about it, I really want to remind you, like, look at all of this. Like the whole chart, right? It kind of looks like a kite almost, but there's this whoosh, right, going on right up here. It's calling for our attention. And so wherever Capricorn sits in our chart, again, if you don't know, go listen to last week's video and you'll find out what house it's in for you. But it's been asking us and requiring us to do some serious work, but not for naught, right? There are long lasting rewards to be had if we're willing to do what needs doing here. So, the January conjunction is a big tipping point, if you will. Now, that doesn't mean that if you haven't done the work, then, too late now. Quite the contrary, right? It's time to put your money where your mouth is, to take the action, start taking this seriously, Capricorn, to focus on it, to quit being distracted by other things. This is an area of life that really needs your attention. And so, I really want to drive that point home for you, because ultimately, eventually, this too shall pass, and it will be kind of too late to optimally work with that energy, right? Like, I'm not fear mongering here. I want you to be aware that this is profound. This is not something that's going to happen again in our lifetime. So harness the energy. And has it been a slog? Has it been a pain in the ass? Have there been obstacles? Have there been setbacks and boundaries and all the stuff? Yes. But there's that saying, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That applies here with this Capricorn energy. So I wanted to give you my little sermon about that before I start talking more about Chiron. So let's go there now. Chiron in Aries at 1 degrees. See, still at the time of this recording, retrograde, but about to station direct and then start picking up some momentum moving through Aries. And in a square to Jupiter, which just entered. It's so tiny because there's so many planets piled up there. But Jupiter, which just entered Capricorn, right? So let's talk about this some more. Chiron in Aries is ultimately about the healing of our identity, our true nature, becoming authentically who we are. It's about the journey of, as Jung called it, self-actualization. So really becoming our true selves, right? And healing issues that we have that are preventing us from doing that. So it's really, I've talked about this before, and again, I have those 2 other videos, but it's a really important time, I believe, to circle back to this, and to think about and consider the questions, those bigger questions of who am I really, right? Am I really being who I am out in the world, or am I holding back out of fear, out of feeling not worthy, out of self-doubt that comes about from all kinds of reasons, our childhood upbringing and conditioning, social conditioning. Um, it comes about from past traumas, whether those be personal traumas, past life traumas, ancestral trauma that we are working through and that we have inherited. Um, you know, Constantly trying to meet the expectations of others. And pardon me. This is my second take of this video, so I've been talking for a long time. Anyway, so it's a good time to really ask ourselves, am I being who I really am? And if I don't know who that is, it's time to explore. We're still at the early goings of this journey, right? It's time to explore and to start discovering who we really are, or remembering, perhaps more accurately, who we really are. Considering, how you may be pretending to be somebody that you're really not, just to please others, just to have a sense of belonging, and worthiness, and these kinds of things. You know, it's like in this age of social media, is my Instagram self, is my Facebook self really who I am? Is what I'm putting out there really my true nature, really me? And of course, there's an element of that for all of us, because those are snapshots in time, right? So we have to be mindful of that when we're scrolling Instagram and Facebook. That's not a complete picture of who somebody is. But am I, pretending to be somebody that I'm not so that I can be liked, or because maybe I don't like who I feel like I am, and so I feel this need to be somebody else? Am I projecting this false self out into the world for whatever reason? It could even be to protect myself, because I feel like I need to. Am I hiding under this fake self for some reason? Or do I even know who I really am? So again, this healing journey is going on for us until 2027 in terms of the healing of our identity. Chiron is always doing work in some area of life, but right now that's the focus. So we're charged over this period to really do what it takes, right? To discover who we really are, to acknowledge that, to accept it, to embrace it, to put it out there. Our true selves, warts and all, the good, the bad, the ugly, fully and completely kind of thing. That's our work. And for each of us, depending on which house Chiron is sitting, that will be focused on a certain part of life. Right? It'll be concentrated on a certain life area for each of us, depending on the house that the house that Aries sits for each of us, which is where Chiron's transiting. So I'm going to get to that in a little bit here. But when Chiron's moving direct over these next couple of weeks, as I mentioned, this energy is amplified. So we can begin to see an outward manifestation of any inner work that we've been doing. And that may have been happening, or things that have been brewing on an unconscious level in relation to that, our identity wound sort of thing, that can become evident externally over this next little while. Chiron is literally the key, right, to our healing and dealing with our deepest wounds. The symbol of Chiron is a key. I have the symbol taped to my wall here because I am going through my own Chiron return. I have Chiron natally at 1 degree Aries. And so I'm experiencing my Chiron return, and it's a very intense one because, I got lucky for some reason. And because of my placement and the retrogrades that are happening, I have Chiron hitting my natal Chiron 5 times over the span of about 2 years, which is unusual. There are other people I know that also have this, but it is unusual. The majority of people, when they have their Chiron return, they get 1 hit, 2 hits, maybe 3 hits. 5, not so much. So this is a big focus for me, right? There's something in this lifetime for me that really needs to be healed in relation to who I am. And I'm profoundly aware of that, and particularly with this powerful Chiron return. So Chiron is the key, right? And it's also the bridge between our unconscious and our conscious, or subconscious, our conscious and our subconscious. Like our material existence and incarnation, right, as an individual, and then the collective experience. It's like the bridge between those things. Hence the idea of taking our own healing journey, and the lessons gleaned there and the wisdom, and then eventually offering that to the collective to help the collective, right? That's how Chiron operates optimally. Our effort to heal ourselves can ultimately benefit the whole in the long run. Imagine if this entire world was filled with people who took that journey seriously, right? Every person was a whole, healed individual who aligned with their soul, who was their true authentic selves, and able to give to the world from that solid sense of self, right? So, and when I just want to, before I launch into going through the signs, there's a couple other things I want to mention in relation to this transit, but when I talk about embracing your true authentic nature, about being your true self, being your true self will ultimately benefit everybody else, right? It's like, well, what if my true self is an asshole? But nobody's true self is an asshole. I promise you, if you are really embracing who you truly are at your core, you're not. You're not a bad person. And so, although we see lots of evidence to the contrary of that in the external world, but those are people that are not operating from a place of their true nature. And so it's impossible to be an asshole when you are operating from your true nature. Other people may perceive it otherwise, but that doesn't make it true, right? So I wanted to say that. So let's move on here to start going through each of the signs and talk about where this is focused for each of us. Of course, there's always other factors at play. Like, I'm not looking at your own personal chart, so I don't know if if Chiron is having a particular conversation with another planet in your chart. These kinds of things. I can only know that by looking at your chart. But what I can talk to you about in these general videos is the house that certain things are happening in. And so in this case, Chiron transiting Aries. So whatever house Aries occupies for you in your chart is where this energy is concentrated. And in these general forecasts, we use rising signs as the most accurate, because I know that if you are a Virgo rising, it is very likely that Aries is in the 8th house for you. There are other factors at play, but generally that's the rule. So, and that's an example, right? So, but also you listen for your sun and your moon, because these will resonate as well and give you added layers of information. But where Chiron is transiting is this long haul energy of healing our identity, right? It is, and because Chiron's going direct, it's a perfect time to focus on this, to get on the right track, to become aware of this if we aren't already, to get back on track if we've fallen off the path. It's through this house where this energy is focused that we can begin to become our true selves, right? That we can really do the deep work. And with Jupiter squaring Chiron over these next couple of weeks, we do, again, have that opportunity to make some real leaps here in this department. Jupiter wants to bring us blessings and luck. Because it's in a square, that may require some action on our part, some work on our part, some even shifting our perspective, you know, some awareness, most definitely. So let's get started and go through the signs. We're going to begin with Aries, because this is where Chiron is transiting. It's transiting your sign, Aries, your first house of the self, right? So this energy is like amped up for you completely. The first house is the house of our identity, of who am I, right? The house of our physical body and our physical vitality and our instinctual approach to the world, to external stimuli. It is about who we appear to be. And ultimately, we want to appear to be who we truly are. And so there's a lot of work going on for you in this department that has been going on through 2019 and will continue through 2027. And so there may have been a lot of realizations, a lot of awareness that there was more work than perhaps you thought to be done in this area of life in relation to who am I, Aries, for you. And that's okay, right? Awareness is everything. When you have the awareness, you can then do the work to change things and shift things if that's what needs to happen. And so Chiron is here to help you get a very strong sense of who you are and to unapologetically put that out there into the world so that in turn you can then help others. That's the ultimate goal, right? With Chiron. So healing the self to in turn heal others or allow others to heal themselves. So that's for you, Aries. I'm going to move on to Pisces now. Please listen to the intro, right, for all the juicy tidbits and the details. But Pisces, for you, Chiron is transiting your second house, right? It has been all of 2019 and it will continue to do that until 2027. And so this is the healing of your identity in relation to your material resources, so your money, also like your personal resources, your time, your energy, the skills and talents you use to make a stable, secure place for yourself in the world, right? Your financial security, your values, your core values, what you truly value, your sense of self-worth. What do you feel that you're worth, right? So Pisces, big healing going on in relation to all of these themes. And you may have been doing a lot of work over Chiron's retrograde internally, and you may even be unaware that there's been some internal stuff going on. And now with Chiron stationing direct, you may start to see the outward evidence of that. Keeping in mind, still early in the journey, more work to be done, but you can get the initial glimpse at least of where this may be headed for you, right? And it's an opportunity to focus on that energy and to harness it and to work with it consciously. So that's for you, Pisces. We're going to move on to Aquarius now, where we've got Chiron stationing direct and moving through your third house, Aquarius. So it has been traveling through your third house all of 2019, and it will continue to do so until 2027. So we're in the early stages, and you may have been doing some internal work, consciously or unconsciously, in relation to healing your identity through the lens of your third house of communications and your immediate environment. So the way you talk, the way you communicate with others, the way messages are received, right? That interchange of information. The immediate surroundings and the people in the immediate surroundings for you. So your peers, your workmates, your neighbors, your cousins, your siblings, these kinds of things, and people. Also, Mercury rules our mobility and the short commutes kind of thing. So there can be a focus on that as well, and healing through that area. So ultimately, Aquarius, you've got the next kind of 7 years to focus on this still. But doing that with a level of awareness and a level of consciousness will allow you to get the most benefit from this transit, right? So it's a good time to consider all of those questions that I posed in the intro to this video and apply them to what's going on with you, and particularly how you might apply that to these third house themes. So that's for you, Aquarius. We're moving on to Capricorn now, where we have Chiron stationing direct and transiting through your fourth house, Capricorn. So this is healing your identity in relation, to your family, your origins, your place of living, your roots, your ancestry, your actual, you know, structure, like the place that you live, even your home, right? Your physical home. It can have to do with that. It can have to do with your emotional security. It can have to do with mother figures or women in your life as well, those nurturing figures. So Capricorn, deep healing going on in this area, and we're still at the beginning stages of that. And you may begin to become aware, or you may begin to see the outward manifestation of any sort of internal or even subconscious work that's been going on in this area for you over the last year. And it may be an opportunity to really grow in a big leap kind of thing over these next few weeks, over the holiday season in general. The work is far from over, but you may begin to see things a little bit more clearly and what is calling for your attention in this area. So that's for you, Capricorn. Not like you don't have enough going on, right, Cap? But that's for you. We're going to move on to Sagittarius, where we have Chiron stationing direct in your fifth house, and Chiron transiting your fifth house all through 2019 and into 2027. So Sagittarius, big focus on the healing of who am I in relation to my creative self-expression, my creativity. Who am I as a creative being? Who am I in relation to children and the children in my life, my inner child? Who am I in terms of what sparks joy for me, right? Hobbies, interests, romance, all the things we do for fun. So Sagittarius, really time to get clear on that sense of who am I in relation to these things, and maybe a time to see the initial inklings of the internal work that's been going on. And again, that can even be on a subconscious level, right? But Chiron really wants you to focus on healing this area of your chart so that by the end of this transit, you can reap the rewards and then offer that to the world as well, right? So that's for you, Sagittarius. Moving on to Scorpio now, where we've got Chiron transiting your sixth house, stationing direct in your sixth house. And this is happening. It happened all through 2019. Chiron in there and into 2027. So long haul transit, as I mentioned, of healing your identity in relation to the daily grind. So this is for you, Scorpio. It's what you do on the day-to-day. All those little habits, right? This has to do with your routines, your daily routines, the things you do moment to moment, hour to hour. It has to do with how you are in service to others. It has to do with, this can have to do with small pets as well. I like to throw that in there because it may be relevant to some people. It has to do with your health and wellness routines and issues around health and wellness. So Scorpio, all those deep questions, and I know you like a deep question, Scorpio, that I posed at the beginning. I encourage you to listen to those and reflect on how that applies to your sixth house and what wants to be healed there. Who are you? Who do you want to be? Who are you truly in that sixth house area of life, Scorpio? And doing that work in that sixth house area, healing that sixth house, can ripple out into the rest of your life. So it's really important work. So that's for you, Scorpio. And you may see some great benefits in the next couple of weeks of the work that you've already undertaken in this department as well, with Jupiter squaring Chiron there. Okay, moving on to Libra now, where we have Chiron transiting your 7th house of one-to-one relationships. So Chiron's been in there doing some healing work over this last year, and it will continue to do some healing work up until 2027 in this 7th house area. This is ultimately about healing who you are in relationship to others, right? Particularly others that are close to you, significant partnerships, a significant other, close family members and friends and business partners, and even rivals fall into this category. So all of those questions that I posed at the beginning in the intro to this video are important for you to apply to these 7th house themes, Libra. And you may see some, blessings coming your way over the next few weeks in relation to this work that's been going on for you in this area of life. And that's because Jupiter is squaring Chiron. Now, it may not come about by just kind of sitting back and letting it drop in your lap. You may have to do something, because it is a square, but there are benefits on offer. And take that and harness it and use it to continue doing the work in this 7th house area for you, Libra. So that's for you. And we're going to move on to Virgo now, where we have Chiron transiting your 8th house, Virgo. So Chiron has been in your 8th house all through 2019, will continue to be there until 2027, and is stationing direct in the next couple of weeks, and will be squaring Jupiter. So those are all the details for you, Virgo, that I know you like those details. And here's the thing. Chiron wants to heal this 8th house area for you, which is the house of intimacy, intimate connections, vulnerability, deep psychological wounding. It has to do with the resources we share with others, energy, time, money, right? So taxes, inheritance, wills, insurance, all these kinds of things fall into this category, Virgo. And so some deep healing work, right, is being asked of you. And you've likely been doing some of that already over this last year, even if that's on a subconscious level. And now with Jupiter stationing direct, with Chiron stationing direct, that can be amplified. And with this square with Jupiter, it can be like seeing the initial bright spot, right? The initial, I see where this is going kind of thing for you. And so think about all those questions that I posed in the intro and apply them to this 8th house area for you, Virgo. Not an easy task, the 8th house, but huge rewards to be reaped and then to be shared ultimately by the end of this transit. So that's for you, Virgo. We're going to speak to Leo now, where we have Chiron transiting your 9th house. So Chiron's been in your 9th house all through 2019. It will stay there until 2027. It's stationing direct in the next couple of weeks. And really pulling focus in that 9th house, right? Healing themes in relation to your philosophy, your belief system, your worldview, your relationship to foreign cultures, people that are different than you, what you can learn from that, long distance travel, teaching, learning, higher education, this kind of thing. So for you, Leo, there is wounding in this area that is calling for your attention. It may now be really in your awareness after this last year, which is an awesome thing. Or it may start to bubble to the surface more for you as Chiron stations direct. And with Jupiter squaring Chiron over these next couple of weeks, you have an opportunity for a real leap forward in this area. So it's good to be aware of what the sort of cosmos is offering you right now, and to work with that consciously and intentionally. So have a listen to the intro for the questions that I posed and apply those questions to the themes of the ninth house, which I just mentioned to you. So that's for you, Leo. Moving on to Cancer now, where we have Chiron transiting your 10th house. So Chiron's been in your 10th house all of 2019, will continue to be until 2027. And this is bringing up themes, healing themes in relation to your public reputation and persona, your relationship to authority, including father figures, and your own authority, your career, your highest worldly ambitions, and the legacy you wish to leave. So this is for you, Cancer. There is some wounding here that is calling for your attention. And if you have been unaware of this for some reason, and it's been kind of working on more of a subconscious level, with Chiron stationing direct, you may gain some awareness. Or if you have been aware and there's been, this has been percolating under the surface, you may start to see some outward manifestation of the internal work that you've been doing. And an opportunity to make a real leap forward here in this area of life. But ultimately, healing the 10th house can reap big rewards for you over this transit. And then by the end of it, you will also be able to share that, right? And help others through what your own process has been. So that's for you, Cancer. Moving on to Gemini now, where we've got Chiron stationing direct in your 11th house and transiting your 11th house all through 2019, and then all, through the next coming years into 2027. So this is a long haul process of healing your identity in relation to the group, to groups of friends, right? Friendship groups, networks, clubs, associations, the people that are walking the same path as you, potential benefactors. Also, Gemini, your hopes and dreams and vision for the future is the 11th house. So there is some wounding here that is requiring some attention and some focus for you. And who are you in relation, right, to these themes? Ask yourself those questions that I posed in the beginning of this video, in the intro, and apply them to the 11th house. And ultimately, doing this healing work over this long haul, you can reap huge rewards and then have the opportunity to help others with that same journey that you have undergone. So that's for you, Gemini. And we're going to move on to Taurus. Last but not least in this case, we've got Chiron transiting the 12th house for you, Gemini or Taurus, and stationing direct in the next couple of weeks. So Chiron's been in there all of 2019 and will remain until 2027, doing some deep healing work. And this is work on a very potentially unconscious level, right? Subconscious. It's the unseen world. It can have to do with our spirituality. It can have to do with our self-sabotaging behaviors. Ultimately, it's what goes on behind closed doors, so themes around solitude and rest and relaxation and recovery, rehabilitation, these sorts of things. It has to do with institutions that are behind closed doors, it can have to do with things like hospitals and hospices and rehabilitation centers and prisons, spiritual retreat centers, all of these things fall into the 12th house. So deep healing work, maybe healing through dream work is something that comes to mind when I think about this transit of the 12th house as something that, may pique your interest over this time, Taurus, paying attention to your dreams and the healing that they may have to offer you. But ultimately, this transit, doing this work, can then help you help others when you're done, right? Not only do you get to reap the rewards, but other people will as well. And with this Jupiter squaring Chiron over the next couple of weeks, you may get to see the manifestation of any early work you've been doing in this area, or it just may simply come more into your awareness if you have not been fully aware of what's been going on underneath the surface in relation to Chiron for you. So that's what's going on for you, Taurus, and for all 12 signs. And I do appreciate you spending this time with me. And I hope you return next week where we're going to talk about the full moon in Gemini. Don't forget to take advantage of the free Working with the Moon guide that I have for you. And I will see you next week, okay? Take good care. Bye-bye.